Welcome back to the Green Means Go channel. It's your host, me. And this is another classic Green Means Go video where he sits down with a very loose, dang it, of course I point the wrong way, loose roadmap of what he wants to discuss. Then he talks about himself in the third person for the rest of the time. I'm kidding. I know that this video is going to be seen by a lot of people of, oh, who cares? Oh, you're just ranting about nonsense. Oh, nobody has time to listen to all that. Oh, there's going to be that negative reaction, and I understand. So I'm going to tell you why I feel like it is something that is worth my time to create this video. I am unfortunately involved in Gambling Twitter. As someone who has created this Green Means Go brand and has tried to find his way into a smaller niche within gambling Twitter and gambling content, I have found myself involved. And I think there are different niches inside of Gambling X. There's people who strictly have Discords and they strictly sell. There's people who more provide commentary and then bet on the side and keep things hushed. There's people who do content for free and just have fun with it. And I have written in my bio that I'm too degen for the EV bettors and I'm too EV bettors for the degens. I'm too sharp for the degens. I'm too degen for the sharp bettors. And that's truly where I find myself, kind of in this middle. And if we start with some of the background, so I guess that is why I want to make this video. I want to make this video because this is important to me. As someone who's trying to grow a brand inside of a community, it is important to analyze the community, look at the community, and poke holes in the faults of the community so that the community can improve. So that's the goal of this video. We'll start with the background. Many of you know that the Elf Spaces started and became this household name on gambling Twitter. I don't want to use hyperbole, but everyone was involved in this. Big names, little names, medium names. It took over Twitter. And it started out as something where scammers and names in the industry who were operating dishonestly or maybe slightly dishonestly were brought on and then questioned, grilled, a spotlight was shined on them to kind of say, hey, these guys are running these scams. And it was entertaining. It was somewhat educational. It was helpful. It was overall, I think, a net positive for the gambling community. And I'm going to maybe say things in this video that are slightly incorrect, that are maybe misremembered, that are not as informed as they could be. So understand that I'm not perfect, and I want you to know that I'm going to be saying things based on my memory of what has occurred or my opinions of what has occurred, and those may be factually incorrect. I'm not going to try to intentionally manipulate the information because that would make me as hypocritical as what we're going to talk about. But I just want you to know that there's a lot that goes on, and I am only one person who can keep track of it all. So where I saw a shift was when Elf decided to befriend the scammer. Elf saw an opportunity, I believe, to make money. And money came from platforming people with money, people with a following. And so no longer did scammers get on the show to be grilled and questioned and held up about their implied probabilities of their bets and their bankroll management and their ROI and their P&L, right? That all went out the window because Elf allowed it to go out the window. Elf sat back and said, wait a second. If I keep allowing these scammers on my show to get upset because they're getting called out, I no longer can have these guys on my show. Thus, the show dies. So he, befriends the Sean Perrys. He befriends the King Caps. He goes to Vegas. They have the whole boxing match. This was the height, the pinnacle of the show, in my opinion. And since then, and I'll call that the pinnacle, right, of the peak. Since then, it's kind of just slowly fallen down a hill. Now, whether that's because he's run out of content, it could be a number of things. But the show is not what it used to be. And about at the boxing match was when I kind of tuned it out. Now, I will say, the Elf show was a catalyst in helping me grow my brand. I was using the elf show as a way to get more eyes on Green Beans Go. I do not ignore that fact. I was nobody before. I am still nobody, but being involved in the elf show has been a net positive for me. So I'm not ignoring that. I understand that as a principle. But about that time, I kind of tuned it out. Why? Because it was taking up a lot of my time. It was turning into something that I did not care about, basically just drama, soap opera, manufactured nonsense. There was no longer any good or education coming out of it. It was just nonsense. And it was nonsense that I think not only was a net negative for the community, but kind of showed people's true colors. A lot of name calling, a lot of, slurs, right? A lot of just hatred, a lot of bigotry. Like, again, that's maybe a little extreme, but it just felt like something that, okay, is this really what you want to be aligned with as Green Beans Go? And it wasn't. So I walked away, right? And about that time, Adam and Earl start their show. And they, from my memory, they sort of pledged to be this, actual sports betting show, this kind of above the nonsense. Here's this elf show, which is all drama, all nonsense, has turned into just manufactured content for the sake of content, engagement farming. Adam and Earl came in and they were like, we're going to do a real show that talks about sports and talks about sports bettings and it gives out plays and tries to educate and tries to create a community that the elf show looked like it was going to do or be. It ultimately wasn't. So this Adam and Earl show begins and it felt like they were kind of picking up steam and gaining momentum. And then I went on vacation last week. And so I missed a lot of this. So again, the details are going to be a little fuzzy. I would encourage you to go out and kind of find the information that you can as on your own. But it seemed like they started getting to these poker games where they were hosting these poker games for people to play. And these are familiar names within the Spaces community. You'd recognize them. And so they were all getting on there and playing poker. And something happened. There is a message where Adam, I believe, sends a text to Bluebeard and says, do you want to cheat here? Meaning somehow cheat in the poker game. I don't know what that entails. I don't know how that looks. Bluebeard says no. Adam gives a thumbs down. Adam has since come out and said, oh, it was a joke, all this other stuff. We weren't being serious. And I like Adam. Adam has been nothing but cordial to me. Adam has been nothing but kind to me. Anytime I've had a question about anything in the industry, about it, I was working with Bet 105 and trying to kind of suss out a partnership with Bet 105. And I was talking to Adam about it because he had worked with him. He's a very helpful guy, very knowledgeable guy, understands the industry. Nothing bad to say about him. But, it may have been a joke, but the way it was worded almost made it sound like this is something that they have done before. Because if you say you want to cheat here, right, it implies that cheating has been done before, right? If that's the first message you send about cheating, you don't say want to cheat here. You say something else, right? Want to cheat here says we've cheated before in some capacity. I don't know what that means. I don't know much about poker at all, right? And Bluebeard says no. If it's a joke, I think Bluebeard probably says, haha, or what are you talking about? Or and then Adam gives a thumb. So, Adam's going to say it's a joke. I get it. It was probably a poor decision I don't know. I'm not going to weigh in on that. The point is you have this show that spawns as sort of the anti-scammer, anti-nonsense, anti-drama sort of pillar of what Spaces should be. And then we get into the same sort of scammy nonsense drama that we had on the Alf show. And that's where we find ourselves today, where we've had this original idea with Elf, and we've seen that go downhill. And we saw another show take off and be what this show was supposed to be before it went downhill. And now this show has kind of shown its true colors of the people behind the microphones, if you will. And it just brings me, as someone who's kind of watched this from afar, to a place where I sit and I say, okay, as someone who is in the community, but maybe not of the community, what do I really want Green Beans Go to stand for? What do I think should be the message? So we'll start with that's the background. Say, okay, I apologize. We'll start with the paradox here. And a lot of people are going to say, why can't these shows be educational? Why can't these shows be helpful? Why can't these shows actually provide value? And this is the paradox. Because the people on these shows that have something to provide, that have something to share, that have a way to enlighten, are never going to do that. When a sports bettor has an edge, that edge stays quiet, or the edge is gone. There is this odd, again, paradox in this community of nobody wants to tell people how they succeed at what they do, but they do want to boast about it, and they do want to let you know. They do want to share how much money they won. They do want to post slips. And whether it's from originating, whether it's from top down, top down, whether it's from partnerships and player ones and player twos and nobody really wants to talk about the industry and what it takes to be successful in the industry, because once you start talking about it, it dries up. That edge is gone, and rightfully so. So to have a show be productive, be educational, is a show that cannot exist. And again, I'm generalizing, but there are multiple times where somebody on the Elf Show was mentioning something that could have been helpful to a community, could have been potentially an edge. An elf multiple times jumped in. No, don't talk about that. Hush, right? You're saying too much here. So these guys want to boast about how good they are at sports betting, how much money they have. And again, I'm generalizing. This is not everybody, right? It's just a generalization. They want to show you that they're about it, but they don't want to talk about it. And I don't blame them. This is not a criticism of that ideal, but it's a commentary on people want these shows to be something that they will never be. These shows, these types of shows will never be educational. They will never provide value because they cannot. Because people who have value to provide are going to keep their mouth shut. And then you're going to get people on here who don't necessarily know what they're talking about, or making educated guesses, or are just doing it for entertainment, or are trying to provide value. And then those sharp minds are going to be like, yeah, you're an idiot. Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. But those sharp minds are never going to provide the value to fill in the blanks, because they can't, because it would kill their earn. Now, again, I'm not saying there haven't been tidbits shared along the way. I'm not saying that every sharp bettor is like this. I'm just saying, as a general principle, a show to a public community with thousands of listeners, potentially thousands of listeners, that actually provides value will never happen. So get it out of your mind. All right. Third thing I want to talk about is speed and money. The two things that I think drive this mess, that have driven gambling Twitter and really its downfall. And I kind of liken it to the mindset of a bettor, especially a top-down bettor, where if a line pops up that is a market outlier or has value to the market or what have you, you have to be fast. Elf knows this. Elf posts all the time his live betting slips. Elf's mind is conditioned. Again, this is me making a generalization. Elf's mind is conditioned to react quickly. And I know this because this is how I operated. When I had accounts, I was top-down betting. I was arbitrage and plus EV betting. And I made a lot of money because I was fast, because I got an alert for something and I was able to get on the books quickly and hit the line before it moved. I was conditioned to moving fast, and it actually impacted other areas of my life. I lost patience with a lot of things. I noticed I was doing different, menial tasks quickly because that's how my brain was constantly wired. And I'm not saying that Elf is necessarily like this and that other guys are like this, but I'm saying if you do this for years and years and years, you condition yourself to react fast to things. And I think when you take a bunch of 20-year-old dudes, myself included, who have been conditioned to operate quickly, because if you don't act quickly, you lose money. You don't get the bet in. It pours into other areas of their life. So, we've seen Elf time and time again make these rash decisions based on just getting to the dollar, whatever the dollar may be. That could be a metaphor. Posting about, we're going to have this sexual abuse survivor on to answer questions, right? Think about that. Maybe we should stop. Maybe before an opportunity comes across our desk and we say, all right, is this a net positive for the community? Is this a net negative for our community? Should I be platforming Sean Perry's abuse survivor? Is that probably like a good thing to talk about? Should I even be platforming Sean Perry? Should I be giving him attention? Something doesn't sit right. Maybe I shouldn't, right? And that leads into money. And I was talking to a friend about this, and he says, we are in the era of engagement farming. We are in the area of attention as a currency. And I was like, I'm going to use that in my video today. Attention as a currency. Because Elf is not stupid. Elf is not an idiot. Now, do I think that knowledge is the only thing that matters in the world? No. Would I operate the same way? People, if you had the opportunities that Elf does, you would do the same. Disagree. Okay. And that doesn't make me better or worse than Elf. It makes me different than Elf. Elf, from an outsider's perspective, blows with the wind. He finds where the money is. He acts quickly, and he's trying to build something. And again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I am of the belief that it has done more harm than good to the community, more harm than good to certain people, and that it is a net negative for not only gambling Twitter, but maybe people's lives. All right, that's my opinion. And people may disagree. It's not bad for his life. He's probably got a lot of resources. He's speaking at Bet Bash, which is another thing. That's weird. That's something that I look at and I'm like, what is, and again, this is a judgment, but what is Elf's qualifications for speaking at Bet Bash? And it makes me kind of lose hope in the entire community, right? And we know, Spanky head of Bet Bash, right? Like, I have no doubt that he is about it. He knows what he's like. He's one of the guys. And I don't know if this goes to the money thing. I don't know if it's like Elf, we let him speak. That's attention. That's more people. That's more money. That's more engagement. Elf is good at drawing a crowd, so we let him speak. But and maybe I don't know what Elf does behind the scenes, but from my observation, he uses OddsJam and he follows a bet screen. Anybody can do that with resources. Elf is well connected. He talks to people. He's got a group behind him that have found edges, that exploit markets. Now, he's not going to talk about that at Bet Bash. He's not going to go up on stage and give out right? Again, this may be unfair of me to be making these comments, but I find it weird that Elf is speaking at Bet Bash, if nothing more than just a way to, again, gain more engagement, gain more people at Bet Bash. Like, it just leaves this weird taste in my mouth. And this goes back to some of these other sponsorships. And I look across the space. And again, sponsorships are a great way to make money, especially for guys like me. Right? I have worked with OddsView, Avo, Ballpark Pal, Novig. And there are times when one of these companies will do something and I'm like, do I want to be associated with that long term? Is that a good look for me and what I'm trying to build here? But I watch these sponsorships also kind of blow with the wind. If I was the head of, say, a Profit X or some book, how important are eyes on my brand versus doing what's right? Like, would I want to sponsor an Elf show? Yeah, there's money there, right? And SoBet as well. SoBet's trying to grow. It's just like, I look out at this space and I'm like, does everybody just want to grow as quickly as possible and make as much money as possible? Like, is that the goal? And am I crazy for thinking that maybe the goal should be to make the money to grow at the pace that doesn't harm anyone, that doesn't encourage degeneracy, that doesn't hide certain facets? It's just a weird place to be. So what's the solution? And we can move up 2 squares to the paradox. The paradox is there's no solution. Gambling X will never improve. It can't improve. There's always going to be people selling picks. There's always going to be people victory lapping their winning tickets in order to generate, in order to market their brand. There's always going to be brands who endorse characters that are going to do nothing more than get eyes on them, whether those eyes are for the ultimate good or not. To be a sports bettor, to really be a professional sports bettor, there are some characteristics that you have to have. You sort of have to not be emotionless, but you have to have, we'll put it in a positive light. You have to have firm control over your emotions, right? Losses can't affect you. Wins can't affect you. You just have to be sort of this robot. And I think we see that within the community. There's not a lot of people who are at least outspoken about the nuance and about the right and the wrong. And again, I don't want to come across, like, I'm not trying to come across as like this, I am God, I am the moral arbiter. I'm not. But I think this place is screwed. I think the community involved in gambling is screwed. I don't know what I expected. So the solution for Gambling X doesn't exist. And so I only can provide a solution for myself as I try to navigate these waters. I'm going to try to provide value where I can. Value in the form of education. Value in the form of, here's how you bet responsibly. Value in the form of, here are these promotions. How can you make the most of them? Value in the form of, if you don't have every sports book, you should probably try to sign up for one. And the other, until you have a whole arsenal so you can get the best line. Value in, you need to be tracking your bets. As annoying as it is, you need to be keeping track of your bankroll and betting with units. And that's the value that I can and I try to provide. And I'm not perfect, and I'm going to make mistakes. But I look at gambling Twitter. I'm like, how much of what we are seeing is a mistake, and how much of it is just the industry? I know there's a couple of people out there, and I'm even nervous to shout out people who I trust in the industry, because a week ago I would have said the NHL bettor Adam was somebody that seems like a good dude, and then we have this whole cheating and poker thing, and it's like, golly, Adam was supposed to be one of the good ones. I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying that this tarnishes his whole image. I'm not saying that he wasn't joking. I'm not saying any of that. But I'm saying I wouldn't right now come out and give my endorsement of Adam, the NHL batter. Right? So I guess my advice is, if people are moving towards the money quickly, if they're moving for attention as a currency, if they are doing something that looks like it could hurt more than one or even one person, if they're moving with speed and they're not being cautious, maybe it's somebody you stop and say, should I be giving that my attention? Maybe the solution in Gambling X is never going to change. The solution is us saying, I'm not going to give that thing attention, even though it's entertaining. Don't get me wrong, the Elf Show is entertaining, but it's typically mindless entertainment. It's entertainment that does not add value to my life in any way. So I'm still stuck up on this bet bash thing. I think it's weird. I think it's bizarre. Maybe I thought of better of what the bet bash is, but again, it goes back to it. Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to increase and make money, and not everybody cares about how that's done. Have a nice night. I love you all, and we shall see you. We'll see you sometime.